Hey there, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Bill Woodcock, and you are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. I'm soloed today. Steve Hunt is on assignment, which means that he's on vacation and unable to participate in today's Ring Dang Do. So I am here by my lonesome. And as we are recording, or as I am recording, it is Saturday, January the 18th. So I am decked out in Baltimore Ravens apparel in anticipation of the huge divisional round matchup between the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills in cold Buffalo Sunday evening. I am going with Ravens 31, Bills 24. So you heard it here first. Uh, the topic for today's episode is, of course, well, of course, yeah, like you don't know, but is the fact that in 2 days, and probably many of you, most of you who are watching or listening to this video or to this episode, will have already absorbed it. This will have already passed by the time you'll be receiving this episode. Donald Trump will be inaugurated again as the President of the United States. And for those of you who have been living under a rock for these past several years, he was the 45th president, and now he is going to be the 47th president. Only one other time in American history has that ever happened, and it is an extraordinarily rare thing where a head of state or head of government is returned to power after a hiatus, especially when you consider all of the times and the turbulent times that they were and have been leading up to Trump's original election in 2016, his first term, and the 4 years of the Biden presidency, which has served to serve as Trump's interregnum, so to speak. Um, a lot of friends and a lot of people are very worried about the second Trump presidency. Here's what I have to say about the Trump presidency. It will end. He only has this other term to serve. He cannot serve another term. Um, there are already several people on each side of the aisle contemplating, if not actively running to be president. You can imagine that the new vice president, J.D. Vance, will want to succeed the president. Um, who will hold the who will carry the MAGA banner going forward without a Trump? Will Trump anoint a successor? One would imagine that he might, 3 years down the road, endorse somebody to back him. Will that person be Vance? Well, J.D. Vance ought to watch the example of Mike Pence and how Trump treated him throughout his 4 years in office, and especially January 6, 2021. Will there be other candidates? Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, Vivek Ramaswamy again, others who will try to regain the mega mantle? Or will there be more classically mainstream, small government, Reagan-esque Republicans? And not sure who those would really be at this point, but I'll put a name out there, a Larry Hogan, who might try to run, or Charlie Baker, the former governor of Massachusetts, who might try to run for president. Um, who knows? Who knows? But that jockeying is gonna start. More front and center though is what's going to happen on Monday. And again, most of you will have already received this podcast by the time Monday rolls around. Um, for those of you who are worrying, don't worry, but prepare. My advice would be to expect anything and everything. Trump has boasted about a flurry of decisions and executive orders and other policy changes happening as soon as he takes the oath of office. And I would expect that a lot of that will happen. I expect he'll overturn a lot of Biden era things and even Obama era things, if there are things he thinks he can turn over. I think there are things that he would want to do to support his, as he calls it, America First mandate, which I'm not sure that Americans gave him a mandate to implement America First. I think they gave him a mandate to do better on the border than the Democrats and also, lower the pain on the household wallets of Mr. and Mrs. America. So I'm not sure that the same people who want eggs $1 lower a dozen are the same people who are going to want some of this crazy nonsense that's going to come out. But, you vote for what you vote for, you do what you do, and you get what you get. And so I'd expect to see all sorts of loony stuff that a lot of people just aren't going to like. And, well, should have voted another way then. You certainly had options. Um, but we have to understand, and 4 years in the presidency prior is great experience and a great teacher for this. We already know what the game plan is. The game plan is go far right, hard right, blather, 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 and it's all window dressing, it's all extra, while the real nonsense is going on behind the scenes, while judgeships are being filled by right wing extremists, um, while policies are being enacted and to limit, to punish media sources who don't speak well of the Trump administration, or to punish people who don't speak well of the Trump administration. We already know that's going to happen because it happened before. So it happened before, it's going to happen again. There's no surprise here. So just, understand that that's going to happen. You will lower your stress level, you will lower your blood pressure, and you will be more clear-minded, more lucid to think about the things that really matter and the things that really count to you. Um, on the Democratic side, on the side of the left, there are some people who say, just go ahead and let conservatives hang themselves. Let the MAGA movement hang itself. Just let people. I'm going to take off my hat and show my unkempt hair. Oh, which really isn't that bad. Um, just let Trump be Trump and watch him stumble and fall. Again, Democrats do that at their peril. And when will Democrats learn that that is not the right thing to do? This is the time for Democrats to figure out who they are and what they're about. Because if they're not careful, Democrats are going to be a permanent minority party in this country. Democrats need to come up with a message that, I'm sorry, speaks to pocketbook issues. You know, yes, awful that people voted based on who's going to lower their price of eggs and their price of gas. Also, awful that people have to plan their lives around how much gas can they afford so they can make their trips to the grocery store, the doctor, whatever else. You know, also a whole lot of things not being taken care of in this country, like infrastructure, like climate, like green energy, like petroleum alternatives, like voting rights, are all also awful. We can, like the border, are also awful. There needs to be a message that appeals to all. and we can have that message that appeals to all, and it doesn't alienate anybody. My wish for the Democratic Party for 2025 is to stop being the party of the people who have stuff to complain about, have an axe to grind, have some sort of moral outrage. There needs to be greater acceptance within the party for its diversity. The party needs to stop banging its chest and virtue signaling every step of the way. Just practice inclusion. Inclusion does not mean that you virtue signal. Inclusion means that you practice a true and honest humility, a true and honest, a true and honest practice of what you preach. And honestly, the Democratic Party has problems with that. The Democratic Party is such a machine. You know, I mean, where was anybody? I mean, I don't understand, and I'm hoping that we get to, or I get to, talk about this DNC chairman's race. In fact, you know what? Let's make that topic of the next episode. I believe we said we were going to make it topic of this episode, but oh well. The DNC chair's position. In fact, you know what? Screw the next episode. Let's do it now. I've got about 10 minutes. Let's talk about it now. Why is the chair of the Democratic National Committee important? The chairmanship of the Democratic National Committee is important because that is the person who is the linchpin between who? Between a number of key constituencies. First off, between existing members of Congress and, more importantly, congressional leadership. Between the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Between the state parties. Between potential candidates for president. Between various donors. Most importantly, mega donors. So, you need somebody who can speak to all those constituencies. Oh, and I left out a sixth connection to Democratic interest groups. People who normally skew towards the Democrats, labor unions, ethnic organizations, LGBTQ plus organizations, pro climate action organizations, educational organizations, pro choice organizations, pro handgun control organizations, a huge amount of special interest groups. So those are many, many, many different connections that person has to be able to navigate adeptly, because all of those individual chords need to be woven into a rope. And once it gets woven into a rope, and if the Democratic Party can put together a winning message that brings it success in 2022, when it speaks to economic security and opportunity and improvement for all, while also leaving no one behind, whether they live in a city or a suburb or in the country, whether they are black, white, brown, yellow, red, whether they are gay or straight or questioning or whatever, whether they are young or old, male, any, what religion, how old they are, where they came from, any factor that may divide us. The Democratic Party needs to stand for the party of just simply put the people. That's what they do. That's what they supposedly do. However, all of that is being co-opted by the Republican Party now under Trump. You see what Trump's done with his Treasury Secretary appointment, his designee. The first openly LGBTQ cabinet appointment to the Treasury by a Republican. And there haven't been that many by Democrats. You know, um, there's an actual commitment towards diversity in Trump administration too. I know that sounds crazy, but it's there. And this man is a expert marketer. He's the king of marketing. He'll sell it. They will sell it. And absent of any appropriate response by the Democrats, people will believe it. So, but issues of diversity and economic opportunity, whereas Republicans won on those this time, this is part of Democrats' DNA. This is part of the Democrats' home field. If the Democrats can't get their home field back, I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do. That's why this election for DNC chair is important. There needs to be somebody who can recognize that when the Democrats play on their home field, Democrats win, be it elections on any level. There needs to be somebody as DNC chair who can speak to that, who can work with all those interest groups, who can work with Democrats on every level, and who understands all of that. Who of those current Democratic candidates for DNC chair do that? Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, he certainly applies. There's a fellow who is I think he's a former chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmers Labor's Party. I would say that he would have the background, whereas O'Malley was a former state governor and mayor of a large city, was the mayor of the city of Baltimore. I can't remember the fellow's name from Minnesota off of the top of my head, but he would be a formidable candidate. Obviously, he's worked with Democrats and with Democratic local parties and all of those various special interest groups and, elected officials in the state legislature and state house. So he has a good skill set. I would say that anybody who ran a state party has a good skill set. Anybody who served in an executive office in government has a great skill set. Um, you know, People who have just decided to throw their hat in the ring just because, no, thank you. Thank you for your interest and thank you for wanting to run, but this is not helping. So please go take yourself elsewhere. So, you know, wrapping up, starting to come to the close of this episode of Forward Maryland. We see American politics at a crossroads. We see the great dinosaur, the great T-Rex, Donald Trump, beating his chest, boasting about his great election victory, his great election mandate, covering up the realities, and even in his own party, things are not all okay. The congressional majority that Republicans have is what, 2 seats in the House of Representatives? And I think 4 Senate seats. I mean, the Senate seats are something else, but that house is sure to topple in 2026. Although remember, Democrats said the same thing in 2024, and look how right they were. Then meanwhile, while he's boasting his chest, he's thrusting his chest out, puffing up, while the Trump 2.0 people are going through the government, and through the world, seeing what havoc they can wreak. Democrats also have an opportunity. They have an opportunity to be the ants here, to slowly rebuild, to build a new structure that is stronger, powerful, updated, uses current methods of technology, uses, forward thinking um, beliefs in terms of coming to terms with who it is, what it's about, and where it's going. Or, they'll just fight and bicker and squabble and geek and then see what happens. This could either be the Democratic Party after the 1994 election, or it could be the Democratic Party after the 1998, or after the 1984 election, or it could be the Democratic Party after the 1988 election. And the difference is that after the 1998 election, there was a small group of Democrats who decided to be bold and forget about what was then traditional party orthodoxy and start to talk about what really the Democratic Party had been about. Why did people elect Roosevelt and about Kennedy? It wasn't about feeding an electoral machine, which was what the Democratic campaigns of 1984 were about. It was about, and the people who ran in 1988, honestly. It was about, being about something different. It was being about something new. And they were called New Democrats. People thought they were centrist, but they were not centrist. These were people who ran on democratic principles, led by a certain governor of Arkansas named Bill Clinton, who ran for president in 1992. That turned out pretty well. Democrats need a similar movement of committed ideologues with a solid pocketbook-based message in order to regain the White House and in order to regain American politics for the following 25 years, as Bill Clinton did. My name is Bill Woodcock. You've been watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. More soon. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.